sociopath at all. Nothing wrong with me.
Australia, a country known for its hot weather and dangerous wildlife, has had a long history of crime. Originally, Australia would be established as a British penal colony for convicted British prisoners. The first of these prisoners would be sent to Australia in 1788, and Britain would go on to transport over 160,000 convicts to Australia, so it's no surprise Australia would have a large criminal underworld, and arguably the most famous criminal to come from the Australian underworld would be Mark Brandon Reid, also known as Chopper. Mark Brandon Reid would be born in Melbourne, Victoria on the 17th of November 1954. His father Keith Reid had been a World War II veteran of Irish descent, and not too much is known about his mother. However, Chopper would grow up in the Melbourne suburbs of Collingwood and Fitzroy. He would be bullied both at home and in school, later stating at the age of 15 he had been on the losing end of several hundred fights, as well as being beaten and abused by his parents, leading to him being placed into several mental institutions as a teenager. Chopper's criminal career would begin in his teenage years. He would quickly become known as a good street fighter and the leader of the Surrey Road gang, which had a notorious reputation for violence. The gang would start off by robbing drug dealers based in massage parlours in their local area. Chopper then graduated to kidnapping and torturing members of the criminal underworld, often using a blowtorch or bolt cutters. Between the ages of 20 and 38, Chopper would only spend a total of 13 months outside of prison, having been convicted of crimes including armed robbery, firearms offences, arson and assault. Chopper would spend most of his early life behind bars. Chopper would start to gain his fearsome reputation while in Pentridge Prison's notorious H Division in the late 1970s. He would form the Overcoat Gang. The gang would wear long coats in the prison in a bid to conceal their weapons, and they would be involved in several hundred acts of violence. And it's around this time also that Chopper would get another inmate to cut both of his ears off. Having upset a lot of the other inmates, Chopper wanted to leave H Division and thought having his ears cut off would be the best way to do it. And to no surprise, it worked. He would leave H Division and would be moved to the mental health wing.
I said, "What are you doing?" He said, I'm trying to be gentle, mate." I said, "You're an idiot." I said, "You don't hack someone's ears off gently." I said, "You hack through them, like that. And put some muscle into it, right?" And he's going, straight through, right? And he's going, He said, "You're not going to bash me later, are you?" I said, "No, come in and do the other one. I'm going to look at an idiot with one."
While Chopper was still incarcerated in 1978, his associate Amos Atkinson held 30 people hostage at the Waiters restaurant in Melbourne, demanding for Chopper's release. After a tense standoff and shots being fired, Atkinson's mother would turn up and persuade him to surrender. So, still being in prison and with a large contract on his head, Chopper would of course be a huge target and was very vulnerable, and this would lead to him being viciously attacked by his own gang and was stabbed and cut multiple times. This would be such an horrific attack, Chopper would lose several feet of intestines and would be lucky to survive. There are a few theories as to why Chopper's own gang would try to kill him. The first is that they were fed up with Chopper's constant attacks and wars within the prison, and they feared for themselves as they may receive retribution from the other gangs. But the most likely theory is they just wanted to cash out on the large contract that had been put on Chopper's head at the time. Upon Chopper's release, he would cross paths with a few of Australia's most notorious criminals in the mid-1980s to the early 90s. He would become involved in a bitter rivalry with Alphonse Gangitano, nicknamed the Black Prince of Lygon Street. Alphonse was a member of the Carlton Crew, which was an underground organisation with such figures as Mick Gatto, Alphonse, the Moran family, and a few other various key underworld crime figures. In 1992, Chopper would be convicted of shooting Sidney Collins in the chest. Sidney Michael Collins was a biker and the president of the Outlaws gang. The feud with the two men would begin when in 1991, after Chopper's release from prison, he would move back to Tasmania to live with his father. But the feud would really kick off when Sidney Collins would invite Chopper to his wedding, with the condition that Chopper pays him £8,000. It wasn't so much an invitation, but was more extortion, so Chopper would pick Collins up in his car and shoot him once in the chest, but he would leave him alive. And Sidney Collins would then name Chopper as the shooter and then testify in the later trial, and subsequently Chopper would be found guilty and convicted of committing an unlawful act intended to cause bodily harm, which would be downgraded from a charge of attempted murder, and Chopper would be sentenced to indefinite detention. An appeal against the conviction was rejected by the Court of Criminal Appeal on the 24th of August 1993, and two more appeals would be rejected after that, but Chopper would be granted parole early in 1998 and regained his full freedom by 2002. And in the same year of Chopper's release, Sidney Collins would mysteriously go missing. Chopper would be questioned about Collins' disappearance and would deny knowledge or having anything to do with it, but would later confess to the killing of Sidney Collins. Chopper at this point had wrote several books and was a best-selling author, and with his newfound fame and popularity, he would start doing stand-up crime shows and talks where he would talk about his stories and his life. And it would be in one of these early shows that he claimed to have seen Sidney Collins again, and stated that he'd killed him and buried him near a football field. Chopper would claim to have committed dozens of murders, but would only take responsibility and give details about 4 murders that he had allegedly committed. The first being the murder of Union heavyweight and member of the Painters and Dockers, Desmond Costello, in 1971. Outside a Collingwood pub, Chopper would be aged around 17 at the time. He would also confess to killing notorious paedophile Reginald Isaacs in Pentridge Jail in 1974, and then Chopper would claim his third killing was that of Sammy the Turk in 1987 outside the Bojangles nightclub in St Kilda, Melbourne. Chopper would be charged with the murder of Sammy the Turk, but was acquitted on the grounds of self-defence, and his fourth and final murder, he claimed, was the murder of Sidney Collins in 2002. But Chopper would be famously known for his storytelling and his colourful personality, so whether he did commit these murders or not will never truly be known. He has been questioned and charged over these murders, but was never found guilty. Chopper was now a best-selling author and was quite well known, but it wouldn't be until the film would be released about his life on the 3rd of August 2000 that his name and story would go worldwide. Already a celebrity in Australia, he would now become somewhat of a superstar. Chopper's film would be received with great reviews. Eric Bana would play the role to perfection and would really capture Chopper's appearance and personality, making the film a relative success. It would gross over 6.8 million at the box office and would launch the career of Eric Bana and would go on to become a cult classic. Chopper would manage to stay out of trouble for the rest of his life, now living off his celebrity gangster image, doing interviews, stand-up shows and appearances. In March of 2008, Chopper would reveal that he only had between 2 and 5 years to live, and he required a liver transplant in order to save his life. He would refuse the procedure though, and stated the liver would be better provided to someone else, and a few years later, in April of 2012, he would be diagnosed with liver cancer. Around the same time, he would do his last tell-all interview with 60 Minutes Australia. And Chopper would pass away shortly after, on the 9th of October 2013, aged 58. Although no longer here, Mark Brandon Reed's story and name will live on forever through the books, movies and countless documentaries made about his life. This was the story of Chopper, a larger-than-life character who went on to achieve fame after making it out of Australia's crazy underworld. If you like the content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.